All right, let's get it rolling. Eurovision, part of Speedway Soccer of the 104.5 The Zone podcast network and Broadway Sports Media. I'm Lucas Panzica, Jonathan Slape, and Ben Wright alongside me for this special episode, looking ahead to Euro 2020. Yes, I said 2020, not 2021, because this is the edition of the Euros that were meant to happen a year ago and are taking place this summer across the continent. Gentlemen, Friday is going to be like Christmas morning for me. When Italy gets ready to face Turkey to kick off the tournament, I'm very nervous because very strange things tend to happen in the beginning, in the opening game of these major tournaments. But I am ecstatic. We have not had a major international tournament in 3 years, haven't had a European tournament in 5 years, and I just could not be more excited to dive into this with you guys.
Man, I am so ready for this. Last summer, I mean, obviously last year was disappointing, but I think one of the biggest disappointments was that this tournament did not happen last year. I mean, we were talking about this off air before we went on. It's just one of my favorite tournaments in international soccer, and I'm just so jacked up and ready for this to get kicked off.
Yeah, I'm super excited, but I do just want to give a quick shout out to the CONCACAF Nations League final, the greatest tournament in world soccer. So I'm super excited for the second greatest tournament in world soccer starting this week. So, but yeah, no, I'm very excited. I think this is going to be a very interesting Euros. There's a bunch of new teams and some new matchups. So I'm really excited what we're about to see.
Yes, we can all agree the Euros do not come close to the prestige of the CONCACAF Nations League final and the game that it gave us over the weekend with USA Mexico. But guys, let's dive in. Here is how we are doing this. We have each been assigned 2 of the 6 groups in Euro 2020. We're going to give our brief overviews of these groups, the teams in them, managers, storylines, key players, how we believe the groups are going to shake out, and who, if you have to pick one team from each group, can win the whole thing, which team that is. Obviously 6 groups, the top 2 teams from each one move on, and the top 4 third place teams also move on, the exact same format as it was the last time around in Euro 2016. Guys, I will start since I have Group A, the opener, Italy and Turkey. On Friday, 2 p.m. Central Time, we'll start with Italy, the Azzurri. Not your father's Italy team, not your grandfather's Italy team, led by Roberto Mancini, obviously former Premier League winning manager with Manchester City. This group is going to have that trademark defensive solidity with Bonucci and Chiellini in the back that you have come to know from Italian national teams. Great goalkeeping with Gigi Donnarumma, a bit of a passing of the guard there. No Gigi Buffon. That's going to be strange to see. But the attacking prowess in this 4-3-3 is what got Italy to this point. They went 10 for 10 in Euro qualifying, won all 10 matches they were in, scored 37 goals and conceded 4. And they've scored 13 goals in their last 3 friendlies in the lead up to the tournament. Midfield trio can consist of Jorginho, who we all know from Chelsea, the Brazilian-born Italian, Marco Verratti, who's had a fantastic season with PSG, and Nicola Barella, who to me could be a breakout player in this tournament on the international stage. Everybody knows him well in Italy, was very key to Inter's Scudetto winning season under Antonio Conte, but I love what he can do in this system as a box-to-box midfielder. I expect him to have a phenomenal month. We're not used to Italy having very dynamic play on the wings, but Lorenzo Insigne of Napoli on the left, Federico Chiesa on the right, or Domenico Berardi, they can switch out. And Ciro Immobile as the 9, he has been lethal. Guys, this is going to be a fun team to watch, and not just because of the style of play. This team is starving to rectify the debacle of missing the 2018 World Cup. Very dark time in Italian soccer. This team is giving Italians reasons to be excited again. There's a palpable buzz around the country right now around this group, a changing of the guard, a hungry squad, and to me, guys, one of the more overlooked squads going into this tournament in the grand scheme of things. What do you guys think as I say that before I move on to Turkey here?
I mean, I think I understand what it's like to have a dark 2018 and looking for redemption. But I mean, there's a lot of guys that I'm excited to see with this Italian team. I think Jorginho is going to be really key with making sure that midfield ticks and keeps the ball, recycling their possession. I think that he's at times can be a bit, discounted at Chelsea. I think there's still some, connections. I think that with Sarri and what happened there. But I mean, I think this should be a fun Italy team that's going to look a little bit more different than Italy teams of the past.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. And I think there are some more exciting young players than we've seen recently. I feel like a lot of times in the past, Italy's kind of relied on super established veterans. And I feel like it's a different look for them, like you said. To me, they're one of the favorites going in.
Yeah, no Gigi Buffon, like I mentioned, no Claudio Marchisio, no Daniele De Rossi. Like this is a very different looking Italy squad, much younger. And it's a group that despite the 4 World Cups, Italy has only won 1 European championship in 1968. So like I said, very hungry group, not just because of what happened in 2018, but just in the grand scheme of things, this is not a tournament that Italy has had perennial success in like they have in the World Cup with the second most World Cup titles. I'm very nervous though, guys, for this opening match against Turkey, managed by Sanal Gunes, who actually led this Turkish squad to 3rd place in the 2002 World Cup. He is back. This is a group that's very strong out of the back, conceded fewer goals than anybody throughout Euro qualifying. Only 3. Center back Ozan Kabak, who Slade can probably speak on, was on loan at Liverpool this past season. Expect him to be a fixture in this lineup. I'm expecting a 4-3-3 from this group. The question is going to be how creative can they be going forward? How much service can be provided to 35-year-old forward Burak Yilmaz? He scored 16 league goals in a Ligue 1 winning campaign for Lille. Had a fantastic season. I still think he has a good bit left in the tank. 29 career international goals. But at this age, he's not one quite to create something for himself. Hakan Çalhanoğlu of AC Milan, very important as an attacking midfielder and on set pieces. I might butcher his name, but Cengiz Ünder, the winger for Leicester City, can bring speed on the counter. I'm definitely nervous for this first game against Turkey because I feel like when we talk about dark horses out of each group, this is certainly one out of Group A.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is one of the better Turkey teams we've seen recently. I feel like they've, after that 2002 World Cup, and they had some decent performances in the Euros, but I just don't feel like they've really lived up to expectations. But I mean, they have players playing at pretty high levels now, even guys like in the Premier League. I think they're going to take some teams by surprise. I don't know if they're going to have enough to advance from the group, but I think they're going to at least make it more interesting than you'd think at first glance.
Yeah, I mean, I think looking at this team and looking at this group, I mean, I think they're going to keep everything close. I mean, I think we're going to see a lot of them trying to get goals off set pieces, which they can get off of Kabak and Under and some of those other guys at the back. I think the biggest thing is how creative is this and can this team be? I think that's my biggest concern with them.
All right, I'll run through Switzerland and Wales here before I give my prediction. I'll get y'all's thoughts and we'll move on to Group B. Wales, managed by Robert Page, who is the interim as Ryan Giggs faces some assault charges. Not a good situation for the Manchester United legend that was named Wales's manager before Page had to take over. I expect a 3-4-3 here. Gareth Bale and Daniel James as 2 of the strikers, names that we all know. Aaron Ramsey charging forward. He'll be critical to what they do in midfield. But despite these big names that I just mentioned, guys, I do expect them to sit back a bit. They've won 1-0 in 6 games since September. Despite some of these dynamic attackers like Bale and James, I think they understand what is going to give them the best chance to win, especially in this group against an Italy or a Turkey. So I expect this to be a Wales squad sitting back and attacking on the break. And as for Switzerland, kind of similar, although I expect a 3-man defense. Ricardo Rodriguez of Torino on the left side of it, a guy who really not that long ago was considered one of the best left backs in the league. He's still very young, about 28. Has kind of fallen off a little bit in that discussion, at least. Granit Xhaka in the middle, extremely key. But for me, Xherdan Shaqiri is the most interesting part of this team on the wing because he's going to be critical to their ceiling. We've seen Shaqiri score some incredible goals for the Swiss national team in the past, but that's from 2014 in the World Cup, 2016 in the Euros. His minutes have diminished pretty greatly at Liverpool lately, so I wonder where the goals will come from this Swiss team. But with that said, Switzerland did just beat Liechtenstein 7-0 last week and a hat-trick from Mario Gavranovic, the 31-year-old plays for Dinamo Zagreb. And they beat the U.S. last week and looked pretty decent doing it. So Switzerland may surprise some people. But here's what we're doing. Who can win out of each group, the dark horse out of each group, and prediction. I believe if anybody's going to win out of Group A, it's going to be Italy. That's not just my biases. I truly think this team has shown that it's dynamic. Its wingers are better than we've seen in a very long time from an Italian national team, and they're scoring in bunches right now. They're confident. They have a chip on their shoulder. I think Italy will win this group and that they can win this tournament. In terms of a dark horse, I think it's Turkey because of a lot of the reasons I just said, certainly capable of sneaking up on some people. Turkey, I think, finishes second in this group. I have Wales finishing third, guys, and Switzerland I have finishing last. For some reason, I have a hunch they will be disappointing in this tournament.
Yeah, I mean, I think everything is you said is pretty reasonable. I'll take issue with you calling Gareth Bale and Dan James dynamic attackers because I'm not sure either. I don't think Bale qualifies at this point. But yeah, I mean,
sure, that's fair.
I think Wales has a lot of issues going on right now, not just with Ryan Giggs, but I think they lack a lot of that top end talent up front that you need to. I think they'll keep it tight defensively, but I don't think they're going to be able to put a goal away every game like they're going to need to do to advance. And then Switzerland, they're always one of those teams that's a little bit hard to tell what you're going to get from them. And I just think Italy and Turkey have much more quality in their roster right now.
Yeah, I recently heard Switzerland referred to as like the most soulless team out there just because it's just there's not a lot of flavor there. I mean, I know you have Shaqiri, but it's just they're just kind of, they are what they are. There's not anything super exciting. And I think that they're kind of in a position where a lot of these guys are getting older and, are going to be in the midst of a transition year. So if they're going to do something in a big tournament, they have to do it now. And I just don't know if they have enough.
Slate, Group B, go ahead.
All right. So Group B, we have it's a pretty tough group. We're looking at with both Belgium, we have Finland, Denmark, and Russia. I know most people, we'll just start off with Belgium, who are definitely the favorites in the group. Coached by Roberto Martinez. They're going to play in a very 3-4-1-2, 3-4-3 type formation. They blazed through qualifying, winning every single game of theirs. They did drop one recently in a friendly and a tune-up game, but coming in completely winning every single one of their games. Players to watch. I think everyone knows most of the Belgian players to watch. It's Eden Hazard, Romelu Lukaku, Kevin De Bruyne, Tielemans, company, Alderweireld, Vertonghen. I mean, they're in the midst of a golden generation, but maybe in the midst of a generation that this may be between this and the 2022 World Cup. This is going to be the last two chances for these teams to make a make an impact with that team. So definitely one to keep an eye on. Moving on to guys, any thoughts on this Belgian national team?
I mean, I would just agree with you. I think it's a golden generation that hasn't won anything, and I think you can probably make a good case that they've been pretty disappointing, just given the talent that they have. I mean, I think on paper they're as good as anybody else in the world right now. So yeah, I mean, they got to come away with something at some point. And I think if you go through this and in the next World Cup without anything, and you see a lot of these players out of the national team picture, I think that'll maybe go down as one of the biggest kind of disappointments in international soccer, just that this talented of a roster didn't come away with anything.
Yeah, certainly on the back end of that in terms of the golden generation. We started talking about that, I think, in 2014, the World Cup in Brazil, and then in 2016, the Euros, 2018 in Russia, where you really saw them make their biggest push, getting to the third place game. So, yeah, I think this is the last chance, guys, for a major trophy for this group. They'll certainly be one of the teams to watch in Qatar in 2022. But that's not just 2 years from now. That's 2.5 years from now. That's an extra 6 months down the road as well, because it's played in the winter. I could rant for another entire podcast about that.
It's just a year and a half.
Yeah, it's a year and a half.
A year and a half. Sorry, math was hard. I was told there would be none.
I mean, they're all calling this Euro 2020.
That's right. That's right. So maybe that's why.
We'll give you the benefit. We'll give you the benefit of the doubt on that.
But I stand by my point that I think this could be that last shot for this particular group to get one of those major trophies.
Yeah, and I misspoke on company because he's a guy that's already been phased out, and they do have some injury concerns. Is Axel Witsel going to be fit and healthy coming into this, because he's had some ligament issues? But moving on to one of the more unlikely winners to ever win Euros, we're going to Denmark. So Denmark is coached by Kasper Hjulmand, I think is the correct pronunciation. They play very much in a 4-2-3-1, and I'm going to kind of break down three players, maybe one in the midfield, one in defense, and one up front of guys to keep an eye out. Simon Kaher, who has been the rock in their defense, is a guy that loves to play it out of the back, has a lot of passing range back there. He's kind of been the stalwart of this team, with making his 100th international appearance in 2020. In the midfield, definitely Christian Erickson. Christian Erickson has been a guy that has been around a little bit. Was at Tottenham for years and then went to Inter Milan and now is looking to make a bigger name for himself on the international stage. I think this team is going to go a lot with him as how he performs. But he does have a guy like Højbjerg at Spurs that will be sitting behind him. Out wide, Martin Braithwaite, who traditionally will play up front as the 9 at times for Barcelona, who will be out there, and then Yusuf Poulsen from RB Leipzig. This team is definitely not going to be one that is not going to be the prettiest of soccer, but I mean they are a well coached and a well drilled team who's going to look to keep it tight. Any thoughts from you guys on Denmark?
I was pretty surprised this morning when I was going through the FIFA rankings to see how highly they're ranked. They're ranked number 10 in the world. I don't know. For me, it feels like maybe the players that they have on the roster are good, but I don't know if I would say they're that good. It feels like they're kind of a team who the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. But I mean, clearly a guy like Christian Erickson has been one of the more talented playmakers like in Europe, and I just feel like he's never quite put it together at the international level. I think this has maybe been one of the best seasons that we've seen from Højbjerg, though, and I think he gives them a little bit more bite in midfield, but still has the passing range to be dangerous going forward. So I'm really interested. I think they're one of the teams to watch, not necessarily because I think they're going to be one of the best teams at the tournament. I'm pretty interested to see how they do.
Yeah, I think this is a great tournament for Christian Erickson, who really came along throughout the Serie A season under Antonio Conte at Inter. I'm looking forward to this because they can make it out of this group. With Finland and Russia, obviously Belgium the favorite, Denmark can get out of this group, and I'm looking forward to see how structured they are. I actually think they might surprise some people. By the way, on that 1992 Denmark team that won the Euros, like you said, a surprise win, one of the biggest surprises in this tournament's history. That team didn't even qualify for that tournament. Yugoslavia qualified and had to basically, because Yugoslavia was broken up as a country, could not participate. Denmark took their place and won the whole damn thing.
Yeah, no, one of the most bizarre, like if you go back and like look, if anyone hasn't, it's just one of the most bizarre instances of a team that should have never even been in the tournament came in and won it. But so moving on, we're going to move on to Finland. I'm going to refer to this team as Team MLS, only because they're one of the few sides that actually has some MLS players, and some MLS players who aren't just there but to make up the numbers, who are going to be important parts of their team. Finland is coached by Markku Kanerva. They play a 4-4-2, a very traditional 4-4-2 with a lot of crossing, a lot of getting balls into the box to get on top of forwards' heads. Guys to look out for and keep an eye on. MLS fans are going to be very familiar with winger Robin Lod, who was at Minnesota United, scored 8 goals last season for Minnesota United. So had some great performances. And I think a lot of fans are also going to be, remember the name Timo Pukki, who was at Norwich just 2 seasons ago, who had a great start to his Premier League series. And then even last year, 26 goals to get Norwich back to the Premier League. So definitely this could be a situation, as we kind of talk about, with groups and with their potential of 3 teams qualifying for a group, I actually wouldn't be super surprised to see a team like Finland or maybe even Russia be one of those third place teams that's able to squeak in there. And then finally, just to wrap up this group, we have Russia. Russia comes into this tournament. I'm probably the team that I'm maybe the least familiar with. They did not have to qualify for the 2018 World Cup. They came into this picking up only 2 losses, but winning every single one of their games in the run up to this. Coached by Stanislav Cherchov, who brought them in, who had a pretty good World Cup from the 2018 World Cup, but will be charged with getting them past the group stage and into the knockout rounds. Guys, any thoughts on Finland or Russia?
Not really. I'm looking forward to seeing Finland in its first major international competition. And Russia probably impressed some people last time around when they hosted the World Cup. So this could be a low-key interesting group to follow.
Definitely. And so, kind of summarizing this, I think that, Belgium is definitely the favorite for coming out of this group. So I have it Belgium, Denmark, Finland, and Russia. And I think that, if there is a dark horse to come out of this and potentially win from this group, I think it's Denmark. I think they're a team that'll play it tight at the back, and then we'll find a few chances here and there. I think with a defensive solidity they have both at the center back and then the 2 sitting midfielders. I think there's some definite opportunities for them coming into this tournament.
All right, moving on. Group C is assigned to me, and I start with the Netherlands. No team in this tournament, guys, wishes that Euro 2020 could have actually been played in 2020 more than the Netherlands, for several reasons. One, Virgil van Dijk obviously missed a huge chunk of Liverpool's season. He will be out for this tournament, would have been available one summer ago. But maybe more importantly, the biggest reason is the manager. If this tournament had been played in 2020, Ronald Koeman would be the manager. Instead, they get Frank de Boer, who we all know and love from his disastrous ending to his time in Atlanta United. So that right off the bat is something to think about with this team. No matter how talented they are, and they are talented, will Frank de Boer mess this up? It's their first major tournament since the 2014 World Cup, in which they made the semifinals, lost to Argentina in penalty kicks. And besides Virgil van Dijk and the Frank de Boer thing, this is still a very talented side. Stefan de Vrij of Inter, De Ligt of Juventus in the back, Frankie de Jong, Donny van de Beek actually out of the tournament. I saw it today. But Jorginho Wijnaldum in midfield, Memphis Depay, who had a fantastic season with Lyon in France, 20-plus goals over the past year. He's going to be crucial to them. I think they'll play him on the left wing if Luuk de Jong starts as the 9 in a 4-3-3. That's what I expect to see. I'm not positive on that, but I am positive this is going to look like a Frank de Boer coach team. They're not going to be that fun to watch. They'll look to have a lot of the ball, especially considering basically no one else in this group is going to look to have that approach. And honestly, guys, I'm just counting on individual class as the only hope as to whether or not this team is actually entertaining. Am I being too critical of Frank de Boer? Is that too much recency bias from what we saw from his time at Atlanta United?
No, I don't think it is, because I think you look at every job that he's had. He doesn't play exciting. He doesn't play exciting soccer. You look at, you said his time at Atlanta. You look at his time at Inter Milan. You look at his time at Crystal Palace. The list goes on. Obviously, it almost seems like these guys like playing for him. So I think that goes a long way. But I think that losing Virgil van Dijk is going to be a huge piece, not just from the actual defending perspective, but from the leadership perspective. Losing your captain, you do have some guys that will step up. Wijnaldum recently a PSG player, but I think he's definitely going to have to step up, and hopefully he can continue his goal scoring form that we saw him throughout the qualifying.
Yeah, it seems funny to me that de Boer is in charge of the team that kind of brought total football onto the global stage, because he's kind of the antithesis of that. It feels like his teams are very restrictive and not creative. From just briefly looking at kind of Dutch soccer Twitter, it feels like a lot of fans are pretty unhappy with how the style of play that they've been watching. So I think this is a team that's, I mean, kind of similar to Germany, who we'll discuss soon. They've kind of underperformed and really disappointed internationally in the last handful of years. So I think this is a pretty big tournament for them.
But the good thing for this group is they're in a very favorable group within the tournament. The Ukraine, North Macedonia, and Austria make up the rest of this group, Group C. And so we move on to the Ukraine, led by AC Milan legend, or should I say Chelsea legend, Andriy Shevchenko, the former Ballon d'Or winner for AC Milan. Obviously, his time at Chelsea was very bad, but he is the manager of the Ukraine. Well, you might see five in the back here. I think he likes to play with the back three. I expect them to park the bus a lot of the time. Really, the only big name guys that most of our listeners will know is Alexander Zinchenko of Man City in the midfield. Russian Malinovsky could have a key role as a box-to-box midfielder. He was in, and the only reason I know that name is because I watched Serie A. He was in fantastic form for Atalanta, especially in the back half of the season. Otherwise, there's not a lot of names people will recognize here, not just because the names are very hard to read and pronounce, but just because it's the Ukraine. They don't have a lot of marquee players around Europe. This team's going to sit back and be solid defensively. They were actually unbeaten in their qualifying group, but looking at the score lines, it kind of tells you what to expect from this group. A lot of scoreless draws, maybe some 1-0 victories here and there, probably mostly 1-0 losses. But the thing about this group with the Ukraine is that they're going to play like North Macedonia is going to play, maybe like Austria is going to play. North Macedonia, probably the weakest team in this tournament, just in terms of talent. They won the lottery with this group, obviously. And to me, it would not be shocking to see them in their first ever major tournament to squeeze into one of these 4 third-place spots that does advance out of the group stage. Would probably have to find 3 points against the Ukraine. However, with all that said, North Macedonia is unbeaten. They have not lost in each of their last 4 fixtures, including a 2-1 win at Germany in a World Cup qualifier in March. 2 names to look for are the goal scorers against Germany. Goran Pandev, 37 years old, played on Inter's treble-winning season, or on the treble-winning team under Jose Mourinho, has played for Napoli, Lazio, Galatasaray, and, of course, Inter. Pandev is a Macedonian god. He is worshipped in this country. He's 37 years old, but he's going to play likely every minute of every game. The trouble is how much service he's actually going to get. A lot of that might have to come from Eljif Elmas, a 21-year-old that plays for Napoli. Going to be big on the counter for a team that's going to sit back inevitably. They just don't have the firepower to not do that. So again, they're the minnows of this tournament, which means they could provide one of the shocks of the tournament. That's what I love about these international tournaments. Anytime there is a small team that you can write off like this, North Macedonia has only even been called North Macedonia for a few years. It used to just be Macedonia. Usually it means that they are capable of providing one of the bigger shocks of the tournament. So I'm looking forward to seeing if they're able to take advantage of what is probably top to bottom the weakest group in this tournament. Moving on to Austria, unless you guys have any thoughts.
I mean, I just want to, quick aside on Ukraine. Definitely, it's a team that I have way too much knowledge on because there's a few guys in this squad that at times were wonderkins and great buys on Football Manager. But Andriy Yarmolenko, who is at West Ham now, has been at Dnipro. He is a guy that is a big winger that can get wide and can also cut in. And then Yevhen Konoplyanka, who's now back at Shakhtar Donetsk, who is a guy that had a lot of promise, made a move to Sevilla, made a couple moves to Germany, and really struggled, but I think is trying to find his footing. He's a guy that is a great two-way winger that I think could trouble some of these teams, but there's definitely some firepower there. I think that a lot of this is the fact that there's so many players on these teams that we don't get a chance to watch just from the leagues that they play in.
Well, and just to your point on North Macedonia, I mean, clearly the weakest team, at least on paper, at this tournament, the lowest FIFA ranking. But for me, these are the teams that are kind of fun to watch just because, I mean, any result is just such a huge deal for them. Like if they were somehow able to get a win over Ukraine or Austria or get a point from the Netherlands, I mean, it's a massive result for them. And then for these players too, I mean, a lot of them just aren't being scouted at the same level as guys from these other countries. So, I mean, for their players, it's a huge opportunity to kind of make a name for themselves and potentially earn a transfer to a bigger club at the start of next season. So for me, I just love watching teams like this.
Yeah, and again, North Macedonia went to Germany and won in Germany in a World Cup qualifier. This was not a friendly. This was in March in a World Cup qualifier, 2-1. Pandev, one of the goal scorers. In that game, they deployed a 3-5-2. I expect them to have the same approach here in the Euros. So absolutely do not count out North Macedonia, at least not in this group. Finally, Austria. Obviously, David Alaba is the name everybody knows here, recently signed to Real Madrid. Thing is, I have no idea where he's going to play. No idea. Left back, center back, central midfield, left side of the midfield. No clue. All I know is he's going to have to play in a central role. Marcel Sabitzer of RB Leipzig, the Red Bull connection is very strong within this team. Sabitzer, very important going forward as an attacking midfielder. He scored 19 goals in his 33 appearances with RB Leipzig and 8 international goals. Christoph Baumgartner in a creative role playing for Hoffenheim. Marko Arnautovic might have to be a goal scorer for this team. He's got 26 career international goals and 88 caps. But look, this is a team that's going to struggle to score. They have not scored in their last 3 matches. 4-0 loss to Denmark, 1-0 loss to England, and a scoreless draw against Slovakia. They're really going to slug through games, kind of grind out results. But the thing is, I think North Macedonia is going to do that. I think Ukraine is going to do that. And we just got done talking about Frank de Boer's style of play with Holland, guys. This is not going to be the funnest group to watch in terms of firepower and end-to-end action. But I am interested to see how it shakes out. I think Austria wins the group. I think they're going to be solid enough to get 3 points in 1 or 2 key matches. I think Netherlands, just their quality. I just don't trust Frank de Boer. But I think just their quality will help them advance at second place. And I think North Macedonia gets that third place spot and does advance with Ukraine in last.
Whoa.
I got North Macedonia moving on into the round of 16. That's my hot take for this podcast. I promise you it's my only one. In terms of who can win the whole thing, go ahead.
I said, what kind of odds you getting on that?
Oh, God, I don't know. But for North Macedonia to advance, well, I'd wager like plus 600 or something. I should look into that now that you say that. But I don't know, man. It's something about maybe I'm looking too into the fact that they beat a Germany team that's obviously down, that is reeling a little bit. Feels like they're still reeling from the 2018 disaster. But I don't know. Something about the way I think this team is going to rally around its core group with a lot of young players and a veteran leading at the top with Pandev with Champions League winning experience. And just the way the group shakes out, there's just not a lot of firepower in this group. I could see North Macedonia grinding out 3 points in one game against Ukraine and then squeezing out a draw maybe against Netherlands or against Austria and getting that third place spot. Maybe they don't advance, but I do think they finish third in this group with Ukraine in last. In terms of who can win, nobody in this group's going to win the Euros. Netherlands has the best quality, so I would put them in that spot, but they're not going to win this group. They're not going to win this tournament. Frank de Boer, I have no trust in. And in terms of a dark horse, I suppose it would be Austria.
Sounds good. Well, moving on. So we'll move on to Group D. We're gonna. I mean, instead of starting with England and starting with, maybe some of the favorites, we're gonna work our way back from the lowest ranked team in this group. So Scotland at 44 in the FIFA rankings, qualifying for their first Euros in quite a while. They're led by Steve Clark, who formerly of West Brom, who plays a 3-4-3. So, I mean, Scotland don't play the prettiest football by any means, but I think coming into this, they have the more talent than they have had in quite some years. So, coming to this, a lot of fans will recognize the likes of, Andy Robertson, Che Adams, John McGinn, Kieran Tierney, the greatest left back in I don't know. And
yes, known fact.
Known fact. Scott McTominay. I think this is a team that
Scott McSauce.
Yeah. I think this is a team that, I mean, first of all, I just got to say the fact that we get England and Scotland against each other in the same group. I mean, the soccer gods could not have been kinder to us with these, but I think that, Scotland actually has a pretty good chance of being able to make some noise. They have some guys that may not have international experience on the bigger stage, but when you have guys like Andy Robertson, Scott McTominay, guys that have played in European finals, and guys that have that experience of winning games and knockout tournaments, there's definitely a chance that they're able to get out there and provide that leadership and provide that opportunity to steal some points in these. Guys, any thoughts on Scotland?
Yeah, I can't wait. First major tournament since 19. No Scottish people are fired up about this, and to play, not only playing England in the group stage, but to play them in Wembley, man, that's going to be one of the best environments of this entire tournament. It's why I love the fact that the tournament's kind of spread out across Europe, because we get situations like this. I think Scotland gets a result against England in that game. I think it's going to be a draw. Maybe they get the 3 points, but I cannot wait to see the disappointment in English fans' faces when they do not get the result they want against Scotland. I'm telling you, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just getting these kind of rivalry games out early, I think it's just going to be great entertainment. And I think it, like Lucas said, it's been so long since they've been in an international tournament. I think you'll see how much it means to these players. I mean, guys like Scott McTominay, who had the choice between playing for England and playing for Scotland. I think you see a lot of high quality players for Scotland, and I think, I know the rankings don't love them, but I think they could be a pretty interesting side to watch. They're defensively pretty solid, and I think we've seen in tournaments like this, if you can keep things tight, I mean, anything can happen.
Definitely. Moving on to the Czech Republic. So the Czech Republic come in at 40th in the FIFA rankings, coached by Coach Jaroslav Šilve. And, they play a 4-2-3-1. This is going to be an interesting situation where the Czech Republic come into this game having been in the same qualifying group as England. So there is some history there. They had, just 3 losses throughout their World Cup, their Euro qualifying. Fans are going to be, looking at the players to watch. It's a very West Ham heavy side. You have guys like Thomas Souček, Vladimir Kufal, the guy that plays fullback. So, guys that we've seen in the Premier League that have made the move over and performed at a high level. Souček is one of those guys that, can really, really do it all. He plays, he can play both in the midfield. He'll play, out wide. Really has a lot that he can provide, and can get forward. He's, great in the air as well. So it'd be interesting to see what comes of that. And then we're going to go straight on to Croatia. Croatia is your, 2018 World Cup runners-up, manned by the world's best defender, Dejan Lovren. They play a bit of a 4-5-1, really relying a lot of field dominance with the likes of Modric and Kovacic, and getting the ball out wide to Perisic. It's going to be interesting to see. They had a bit of a struggle coming out of the gate from World Cup after World Cup into Euro qualifying, not maintaining that high level. So it's going to be interesting to see whatever they're able to provide. They're right now 28-1 to win the Euros, but definitely should be a team that gets out of the group and makes some noise. But I'm going to I have them marked as maybe one of the stronger teams that, could potentially fail to get out of the group. They definitely, there's always one team that surprises us by not making out of the group, and Croatia could be the one. So moving on, and then we'll talk about, how we see this group coming together. But England, England coached by Coach Gareth Southgate, really in the midst of a golden generation. They're going to play a 4-3-3 that may at times be a bit of a 3-4-3 hybrid. I think one of the big concerns or big questions coming to this team is, we saw that Trent Alexander-Arnold picked up a knock and is now out for the Euros coming to this, and how do they create any more down that right-hand side? It looks like Kieran Trippier is going to be your player that plays out in Robertson's spot, but or Alexander-Arnold's spot, but it's just going to be interesting to see how that team adapts. I mean, they do have an ungodly amount of right backs as well, so it'll be interesting there. And then Kane, Sterling, and Mount up front, I think are going to be the guys that are really going to be tasked with creating a lot. Mount and Kane both had fantastic seasons. Kane's with the most goals and assists in the league, in the Premier League, and I think Sterling is going to be the one to see how he's able to bounce back. He has had a bit of a tough year and has struggled to maybe get back to his heights of years prior. But I still think that he's going to come in and play an important role in this team.
Ben, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think England is kind of consistently one of those teams that disappoints internationally. But I mean, their World Cup performance, I thought was one of the more exciting displays they've had recently. I feel like we use the phrase golden generation a lot, but I mean, it's just so much young talent that's playing like at a really high level for clubs. And I think Southgate, to his credit, I think he's done a pretty good job turning that talent into a cohesive unit. But I mean, if you look at the names of players who probably aren't going to be starting, like Jadon Sancho, Marcus Rashford, Jack Grealish, I mean,
Jude Bellingham.
Guys, right. I mean, these guys are you could say some of the best players in the world aren't even getting into this England team. So yeah, I mean, kind of to maybe a lesser extent than Belgium, I think they kind of have too much talent to not do something. I think they have more time to do it because it's still such a young team. But yeah, I think this is going to be an important year for them. Maybe not necessarily to win a trophy or bust, but I think to kind of build cohesion because they should be a challenger for the next couple World Cup and Euro cycles.
But you're never going to win a major tournament with Jordan Pickford playing as your goalkeeper. I mean, I think that's number one, the weakest position.
Do you think he's the starter?
I was going to say,
yeah, no, I think he is.
Henderson.
No, I think
Henderson.
I think Dean Henderson's the better player, but I think Gareth Southgate's going to start Jordan Pickford.
That is one of the biggest question marks with this team. I think that's the most fascinating position battle right there. I
think you could see a different goalkeeper in each group stage game because I don't think Gareth Southgate quite knows who he wants to start.
There's definitely too much talent there for them to not do something, to not get out of the group. But there's also might be too much talent there to win the thing, to fit all the right puzzle pieces together and win a major tournament. I don't think they're going to do it, and I don't think anybody does.
They feel like a semifinal team to me. That will probably end up playing in a third place game.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty valid prediction. I don't think there's a few pieces that I don't have faith in them if they're starting Jordan Pickford. I don't have a ton of faith in Gareth Southgate either to really put the right pieces on the field. I think the right pieces are there. I just don't think he is the manager to get that done for this team.
Ben, you've been waiting patiently. Let's hear about Group E and F.
Yeah, so I mean, kind of like you said about Italy to start out the show. I think this isn't your daddy's Spain team. Luis Enrique took over after being at Barcelona, and I mean, tiki-taka is just gone from this Spain team. I saw an Athletic article that called him an old English style manager, and he's significantly more pragmatic than you're kind of used to seeing at that Spain level. He's brought in a ton of younger, lesser-known players. I mean, he didn't call up a single player from Real Madrid for this tournament, and he's gone more towards a younger model of player. But I mean, it's worked for them. They won their group with 8 wins from 10, and they only conceded 5 goals while qualifying for this tournament. Even without Real Madrid players, I mean, it's still such a stacked Spain team, and I think you're kind of starting to see in years past this Spain team was almost completely domestic based, and it felt like it was 22 or 23 Barcelona and Real Madrid players, maybe with an occasional Atletico Madrid player. But now you're seeing so many guys from the Premier League. I mean, you have Emerick Laporte and Ferran Torres and Rodri from Manchester City. You have Thiago from Liverpool, David De Gea, who probably won't be the starter from Manchester United, Marco Llorente from Leeds. So it's more of it's not as domestic heavy. And I think Luis Enrique hasn't been afraid to kind of shake things up a bit and not just go with the status quo. If you go down to the rest of the teams, I mean, Sweden looked like they were going to have an epic comeback of Zlatan Ibrahimovic, but he picked up a knee injury. And to be honest, I think they've probably been better without him. And as good as he is, it feels like he's kind of just a distraction. And I think the team is more cohesive without him. Bjarne Andersen is their head coach, and he's won 50% of his matches in charge since starting in 2016. And he got them to the quarterfinals in the 2018 World Cup. So I think they're a team that kind of has slept on a little bit, but in recent years, their results have been pretty good. And they have a lot of talent too. I mean, Victor Lindelof is a starter at Manchester United. Emil Forsberg is a starter at RB Leipzig. Alexander Isak is probably going to be the starter up top, and he's really young and pretty unproven, but I think he has potential to be one of the next big number 9s in Europe. I think they're probably a team that they're not going to win the group, but I think they could be a team that maybe finishes second and goes on to surprise some people. The last couple of teams here, Poland and Slovakia, I think both of these teams are kind of underhyped and have the potential to be a dark horse team. I think Slovakia especially, they have a lot of talent, and I think a lot of players who are playing consistently for their club level at a high level. Guys like Dubravka playing for Newcastle, Milan Skriniar playing for Inter Milan, Lobotka for Napoli. Marek Hamšík is kind of, he's past 30. He's left Serie A and he's playing in Sweden now. But I mean, he's a guy who is consistently produced for club and for country. So I think they're a team that has enough talent to kind of, like we've said about some of these other teams, maybe sneak into a third place spot and make a run to quarterfinals or something around that mark. Poland, I don't know. I have a lot of questions about them. They've definitely gone more attack focused. They've switched to 3-5-2 and have Robert Lewandowski leading the line, who's I think probably the best striker currently in the world. But it's a bit unfortunate to him. It feels like he's never really had the supporting cast that he deserves at the international level. And as good as he is, if he doesn't get service, he's not going to be able to do enough to keep them competitive. And I think maybe it's not a surprise, but I think they'll probably end up at the bottom of the group. I'm going to pick Spain to win it, Sweden to finish second. I have Slovakia qualifying for the knockout rounds in third place, and then Poland coming in last.
Yeah, I think looking at this group, I think there's some interesting storylines. When you talked about Spain and Emerick Laporte, I think the big thing is he filed that one-time switch and is now playing for Spain rather than playing for France, that he's able to. And I think looking at Sweden with Alexander Isak, I really think that he could be one of those players that I feel like we have coming out of the Euros all the time, a guy that really is able to assert himself and pick up up his profile, maybe pick up a big move coming out of this. I think that he has a great opportunity to do that. And then with a guy like Matthias Klick, who is at Leeds on for the Poland team, I think he's going to have to be tasked a lot with getting the ball to Lewandowski, because there's a situation where you have one of the best finishers, or maybe the best finisher in the world up front. But the question's going to be who's going to get him the service. And we're going to have to be honest, it doesn't even have to be necessarily perfect service for Lewandowski to be able to score goals, but it's still going to have to be someone's got to facilitate that and create those opportunities for him.
One other note on Poland: they're one of the few teams with the MLS representation. They have Przemysław Frankowski for Chicago on their roster.
Poland is interesting because they're so set in the furthest ends of the field that they can be in. So Szczesny is about as good of a goalkeeper as you can ask for in this tournament, and Lewandowski is probably, like you said, the best striker in the world. It's just everything in the middle that is going to lead to possible early exit for Poland. And Ben, you better watch your mouth about Zlatan Ibrahimovic. I will not tolerate this on this podcast.
Oh, I'm here for the Zlatan slander.
I will not have it.
Feed me your hate, and I'm also here for any England slander as well. So
that's okay. On to Group F.
Yeah, so I think Group F is. I don't think it's even a hot take. It's the best group in the tournament.
Yeah,
France. I feel like France is just on another level from any team in the world right now. The talent that they have on their roster is next to no one. But I think it's not just talent. I know we kind of give Didier Deschamps a little bit of stick sometimes, and I think deservedly so. But over the last couple of years, he's really taken maybe the most talented roster in international soccer and turned it into a really cohesive team. They're the reigning World Cup champions. They were in the final of the last Euro Cup. I think this team is there aren't a ton of favorites, I would say, in this tournament, and I think France is probably the favorite heading into it. I mean, just go down the roster: Raphael Varane for Real Madrid, Paul Pogba for Manchester United, N'Golo Kante for Chelsea, who's I think has a case to be one of the best defensive midfielders of all time. Antoine Griezmann, who's really kind of found his form at Barcelona, and then Kylian Mbappe, who I think is going to be the next kind of big superstar in the game. An interesting storyline for me is the return of Karim Benzema, who was kind of out of the team for a while. He's been, I would say, one of the more underappreciated forwards in the world at Real Madrid. He consistently shows up for them and scores goals. He actually went off hurt today in a friendly.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big question mark for me, just how they handle that. If it's a long-term injury, if he'll be healthy. And I think for any other team in the tournament, losing a player of that quality could be the end of their tournament. But I mean, this team is just so good that I think they'll be able to bounce back even without him. Going down the group, I mean, you have Portugal, who are the reigning Euro champions. I think this is maybe getting towards the end of their golden generation, at least their golden generation under the leadership of Cristiano Ronaldo, who you have to think this might be his last international tournament playing at a high level. I mean, he'll probably be on the roster in the World Cup, but it feels like his days at the very top of the player pool are numbered. But underneath him, they have some really exciting talent. I mean, Bernardo Silva for Manchester City, Ruben Diaz, who was voted the Premier League Player of the Season for Manchester City, Bruno Fernandes for United, Ruben Neves for Wolves. It's a really exciting
Diego
team.
Jota as well.
Yeah. Liverpool's own. And Fernando Santos, their manager. I mean, he's really been able to take teams and do well with them at the tournament. He obviously was in charge in 2016 when they won. He also took Greece to the quarterfinals in 2012. He really, for a team that has such great attacking talent, he really has them organized defensively. So they're not just a team that'll outscore you, but they're just really hard to play against and have a really pretty established identity. I don't know if you can call them a dark horse since they're ranked 5th in the FIFA World Rankings and are the reigning champions. But I think outside of France, I think they probably have as good a shot as anybody to win this thing. Germany, man, kind of like the Netherlands, but worse. They've just been so disappointing internationally recently. They were awful at the 2018 World Cup. I think it was probably the biggest failure of the World Cup. And since then, it's just been rough. It's Yogi Löw is going to step down after 15 years in charge. This is going to be his last go with them. And I think it's a change at a manager is probably overdue for them. But I mean, even with Yogi Löw and even with their issues, they're still an incredibly talented team. Manuel Neuer is still one of the better goalkeepers in the world. And then if you just go down the list, I mean, some of the best attacking talent in the world. Ilkay Gundogan for City, who I still think is one of the best midfielders in the world when healthy. You have guys like Serge Gnabry and Leroy Sané. It's a really talented team that just hasn't been able to put it together for the last couple of years. And I think it's kind of a make or break tournament for them. I mean, obviously Yogi Löw is leaving anyway, so it's not like his job is on the line, but this team is just too good to struggle again. And I think they need a run to the semifinals or something to that extent to really bounce back and give fans something to be optimistic about. The last team in the group is Hungary, ranked 37th in the FIFA World Rankings, and they're clearly the outsider. But they've been a long time ago at the World Cup. They were one of the powerhouses in Europe, and they just kind of dropped off a cliff. They haven't qualified for 8 straight World Cups. But I think they could be a really interesting team in the Euros. They lost one of just 11 matches heading into this last round of warm-up games before the Euros. They have a lot of exciting attacking talent. Actually, another MLS represented team with players from Philadelphia and from Dallas. But I think I'm not going to say that they'll advance, but I could easily see them taking points off of Germany or potentially off of Portugal or something like that, just to make this group a little bit more interesting. But yeah, I think this is France's group to lose, and I'm maybe not. I won't go as far as to say it's France's tournament to lose, but I think they're the clear favorites, and they have more talent than anyone else in the world right now, and I think it's going to be appointment viewing whenever they're playing.
So that Portuguese team fascinates me because it's probably the biggest blend of old guard and new guard, so to speak, with obviously Cristiano Ronaldo, still expect him to play at a high level. Pepe, who's about 150 years old, still expect him to anchor the back of the 4-2-3-1, right?
He's still good for a 2-footed challenge.
Yes, he's going to have
solid red card,
his token red card, absolutely. And then you have Ruben Diaz and Bruno Fernandes. You know, Nani out, guys like Ruben Neves and Bruno Fernandes and Diego Jota in. So I think that is a fascinating blend and balance there of veteran players that have experienced winning a European Championship from 2016 and these younger talented players that are starting to take over a bit in the Premier League. So yeah, that's a fascinating squad to me.
Yeah, I think. Slape, go ahead.
I was going to say, you mentioned the Karim Benzema, being recalled. I think it's also important to mention why Karim Benzema has not been in the squad. Karim Benzema is still set to stand trial over an alleged blackmail scam involving one of his French teammates in regards to a sex tape. So I really think that, I just don't understand adding that guy. I know he's a great striker, but I think this team has done really well as gelling as a unit, and I would just worry what adding someone like that into that team is going to do for team chemistry.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, and I think it's also worth noting that they have enough talent that. He's a nice piece to have, but he's not essential. So yeah, it's I think an important question to ask.
He just had such a resurgent year at Real Madrid. And look, guys, who hasn't been there? Who hasn't had a friend threaten to end your life and career over a sex tape? I know I have. All right, moving forward.
Was it Davy Shepard?
Yes, in fact, it was. I kid. All right, Jay Mueller has a listener question or a few listener questions for us. Who makes it out of the group of death and why? So, Ben, you just went through the group of death, going through every single team. Who do you think makes it out, and does a third-place team make it out here?
I think France wins the group. I think it's pretty hard not to see them winning it. And then I would probably say France wins, Portugal comes in second, and then Germany qualifies in third.
Yeah,
right?
I think France wins it, Portugal finishes second, and I'm gonna say that. I guess with that, I think we can count that all up. They're gonna win against Hungary. So yeah, I do think Germany makes it out. I was just trying to figure out, kind of looking at permutations, but I think we can probably assume that they all beat Hungary. And that at least you have 3 points. So, yeah, I'm going to say Germany makes it out as the third place team there.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking as well. I don't think Germany finishes in the top two either. Jay Mueller says, who do y'all think will be the breakout team and player of this tournament?
Ooh, breakout team. I could go back to Turkey. I think they're a team who are probably better than their ranking. And I think if they finish second in that group in advance, I think almost by default they'll win breakout team.
Yeah, this is a very, very tough. I think breakout players. I think I talked about Isaac at Sweden. I think he can definitely be a breakout star and a guy that's maybe can be seen as an heir apparent to what Zlatan did with the national team, did or didn't do with the national team. And I think breakout teams, is it weird to call Portugal a breakout team when they won the last one? Because I think the fact that, if you look at the lineups between these two teams and the turnover, you're missing guys like Quaresma. And then yes, Cristiano Ronaldo is on this team, but he is not the driving force and not the only attacking outlet of this team. So
it's kind of almost a different generation of Portugal right now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, no, it is. It definitely is. And I think there's some young guys that have done a lot on the club stage, and they're now going to be looking to cement their legacy with their national team. So I think it's, I mean, that maybe that's a cop out of an answer, but I think that's definitely one that we're going to see a changing of the guard with this team.
Well, and remember, Ronaldo left the final in 2016 very early with an injury. He tried to go, couldn't do it, basically acted as an assistant manager for the rest of that game.
That was one of the best moments of the tournament.
Yeah, and Eder and all of his dreads scored the game-winning goal, I believe, in extra time. Eder at the time played for Swansea.
It was right at the start of extra time, and he hit that shot from forever out that just
it was so weird. It was just on the ground the whole time.
Slowest shot of all time. Just
somehow got past Hugo Lloris, and Portugal hoisted that trophy. I think breakout team of this tournament might be Denmark. I could see them making a quarterfinal type run if Christian Erickson, I think that team goes as Christian Erickson goes, and I think he could be poised for a great campaign this summer.
I'm just going to throw out Slovakia. I think they're a really talented roster, and I think just their form going into this tournament has been pretty decent. So I think if they advance, they could be a team who causes some problems in the knockout stage.
My breakout player, I've already said, is Nicola Barella of Italy. He had such a fantastic season with Inter. He can do everything, box to box, can dribble, has fantastic vision. He won't be asked to play a deep lying role. That'll be more Jorginho, but that's what excites me about what Barella can do for this team, surging forward and hopefully giving him freedom to create and shoot and dribble and do whatever he wants.
I think for my breakout player, this might be a cop-out too because he's a pretty well-known player, but I think Serge Gnabry, he's played a huge role for Germany leading into this tournament, and I think he's going to be pretty important for if Germany does anything, he's going to need to step up just in a way that we haven't really seen from him at the international level. So I think he could have, if Germany does well, I think it's going to be in large part because he's firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, certainly a Golden Boot candidate as well. And we might as well dive into that. Who do you guys think wins the Golden Boot? I've got my money on Romelu Lukaku. I could see his form carrying into, as my dog barks to let him outside, I could see his form carrying into this tournament. As Belgium, you expect to make a deep run. Typically, the Golden Boot winner is in the semifinals in that range. Belgium, obviously, a team that can get to that point. And if they do, Lukaku will probably be scoring goals.
Yeah, I mean, I think Lukaku was going to be my first pick. Just because, I mean, I think we've seen the form he's been in really in the last 2 years. It's just unbelievable.
I think Harry Kane's actually the favorite.
I'm going to say who we're starting up top for France, which up until today I probably would have said it was Karim Benzema. But I think they're just going to create so many chances with the attack. I mean, I don't know if Olivier Giroud is your prototypical Golden Boot winner, just because I think he does everything well from the forward spot except for score goals. But yeah, I mean, I someone for France leading the line, I think probably Benzema or Mbappe.
Yeah, I was going to go between Kane and Mbappe. I think those are the two guys that have the biggest chance. I think the fact that Kane's your center forward that's also going to take your penalties, I think plays in a large part to that, because like if you look at some of these other teams, you're going to have a midfielder that's going to be your penalty taker, and I think that even one or two penalties in a tournament can be a big difference maker as far as from a Golden Boot perspective.
Jay Mueller also asked us what calamity befalls England because they obviously won't win. It could be a multitude of things, and I can't wait to find out what it is.
Can we just talk about how ridiculous it is that Jesse Lingard was not called in instead of Trent Alexander-Arnold? When Alexander-Arnold got hurt. The man.
I was about to say, we're gonna have beef here. I mean,
I love Ben White. I think Ben White is going to be kind of the next big defender for England. So I get why you call him up. But Lingard was in unbelievable form, and I think he deserves to be on that team.
So I think I'm gonna preface this by, we had this conversation beforehand. Lucas asked, "Who's the team you're pulling for?" And I said England failure. I love nothing more than seeing the English national team make bungle after bungle and mistake after mistake. And I think that this is a great England squad, but I cannot wait for the inevitable Jordan Pickford spill that leads to the game getting knocked out. I can't wait to see how England messes this up.
Carrying on the fine tradition of Robert Greene.
Or the fine tradition of his Everton career.
Right.
Can only hope that it is in a penalty shootout that England gets eliminated, because that's my favorite.
I hope Dean Henderson gets the starting job, because I just want to see a goalkeeper in a baseball cap.
Man, this really turned into an England hate fest. Travis asked, when will the German machine dominate again? Not this summer. So Last two
The
things,
German
guys.
machine is broke down like my German machine, my Audi.
Last two things here, guys. Give me who you're rooting for, and then we'll do our picks to win. Give me who you're rooting for. Obviously, for me, you guys know I'm Italian. My entire family over there, my father, they are buzzing about this tournament. It is palpable, the excitement in that country for this team, and they haven't played in a major tournament since 2016. It's been 5 years. That's an eternity in Italy. And obviously, I am all in for that. I'm nervous for that opener against Turkey, but who are you guys pulling for without any, completely direct connections like some may have?
Yeah, I'm pulling for Germany. Just my mom's family goes back to Germany, so I guess there's a connection there. And they've kind of been my whenever the U.S. isn't playing team, the team that I go for. But I'm also really pulling for Turkey. I lived there for a while, and I've gone back there several times, and they're just it's a great country and a team that I enjoy watching.
Yeah, usually coming to a tournament like this, Ireland is the team that I'm pulling for. Just based on family heritage and my time spent there. So I think coming into this, there's a lot of teams that I like, but there's maybe one or two players that I'm not a big fan of. But I think Scotland, I'm just going to go with. I'm a big Andy Robertson fan from his time at Liverpool and just his career and what he's been able to do coming from the famous tweet from maybe even 6 years ago, he was talking about where he can't tweeting that he can't afford any money to eat. He's just looking for some food. And now he's, won a league, won a Champions League. So I like what the Scottish team has. And I think that they can make some noise. So I'm definitely going to be pulling for Scotland.
Yeah, and that England-Scotland game, one of the games to watch, obviously, in the group stage. All right, picking winners as we wrap up here. I'm probably just denied any credibility I might have had by saying who I'm pulling for. Guys, I'm going with Italy. Again, every reason that I've stated, I think this roster is talented from top to bottom. The defensive solidity is there with the attacking flair. And it's not just like an idea that I have. They're scoring goals. They scored 37 goals in 10 games in qualifying, 3.7 goals per game, and they've continued that form with pre-tournament friendlies. Ciro Immobile has scored 20-plus goals in each of the last 4 seasons for Napoli. I feel like that, Lazio. I think that goes under the radar a bit. I think they're going to score in bunches, and I have Italy winning their second ever European Championship. What about you guys?
I'm going to go France. I mean, I know that maybe it's a cop-out picking the team that just won the World Cup, but I mean, I think this France team is too deep. I think the way they don't win this is any kind of squad disharmony from the addition of Karim Benzema.
I'm going to pick Belgium upsetting France in the final, which, I mean, it's hard to call that an upset because they're probably one of the 2 best national teams in the world. But yeah, I think Belgium, this is kind of their tournament that they have to get something. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Belgium.
Gentlemen, this has been fun. I cannot wait. 2:00 Central on Friday. Italy and Turkey will kick things off for Euro 2020. The action will go for about 4 weeks. We'll try to have more of these podcasts, maybe at the end of the group stage, maybe at the midway point of the group stage. We'll see kind of what the reaction is. Let us know if you want to hear more. I certainly would be glad to hop on here again with you guys and go over some more things throughout the tournament as we move along in the first major international tournament since the 2018 World Cup in Russia. Guys, appreciate y'all doing this. Looking forward to it. Yeah, looking forward to it. Hopefully you get some work done. Or hopefully we all get some work done. But I'm going to be on the board in the 104.5 The Zone control room with my eyes in the wrong place on the TV in front of me, watching the 8 a.m., 10 a.m. kickoffs in Europe while probably neglecting to do part of my job on the board. I'll try not to get fired. We didn't even mention we're going to have this in the morning and during the day, and then Copa America at night. It's going to be a Copa America summer. At night. I mean, you got the Gold Cup in July. This is the best. This is when soccer is at its peak internationally. It's absolutely incredible. My wife is going to absolutely hate me the next couple months. Yes, everybody's significant others are going to be very annoyed by the end of July. But let's have some fun. For Ben Wright and Jonathan Slape, I'm Lucas Panzica. This has been Eurovision Euro 2020 preview of Speedway Soccer on Broadway Sports Media and part of the 104.5 The Zone podcast network. Enjoy the games. We'll talk to you soon.
Never go full shepherd.
Nope.